Let's talk about sports photography a little bit. I subtitled this one, Why We All Have Bad Backs. Some general thoughts on sports photography. Sports is all about the decisive moment. You're looking for that perfect fraction of a second that not only sums up that play, but sums up the entire game. You're going to need to anticipate the action, know where it's going to happen, and when it's likely to happen. And the better you know the sport, the luckier you'll be. For this assignment, best to shoot an outdoor sport you're familiar with. You'll have much better luck. I'm also going to talk a little bit in this presentation about shooting sports at the high college and professional level. I think it's an interesting look into that life as well. Do know that shooting sports professionally is it's very expensive. You need cameras that prioritize fast autofocus and fast drive speed and work at extremely high ISOs, and those high-end bodies are expensive. You're working with exotic lenses, 300 millimeter, 400 millimeters, both f2.8, a 600 millimeter f4, maybe a 2 to 400 millimeter f4 zoom. Remote cameras are very common in sports, and that adds multiples of everything. And you're out being knocked around and you're out in the weather a lot, and that's very hard on the equipment. So you also have frequent repairs. I don't want to discourage you from trying this, but if you want to do this for a living, do know what you're walking into. Some sports are going to need access. You need to arrange that in advance. You don't just show up to a Broncos game and say, hi, I want to take pictures. Some sports will have specific credentials. Some sports won't have any restrictions at all. And I should say the credential is not payment for shooting the event. It's the access that you need to do your job. So again, you might want to pick a sport that doesn't need credentials. So you're going to have much easier access getting into something like cross country or swimming than you will into football or basketball. Professional sports requires quick turnaround. Typically, you're on deadline the minute you walk in the venue. So you want to buy speed if it's possible, faster cards, faster card readers. This is not someplace you want to go with outdated equipment if you have a choice. You can add a front-end program like Camera Bits Photo Mechanic to do your selection edit and your captions. The beauty of Photo Mechanic is it has something called code replacement, where you enter the roster ahead of time, and all you have to type is the player's number, and it will fill in their name. This is very helpful and speeds things up. You can pre-write a lot of your caption. For example, if I'm shooting the Utah football game, I can pre-write the caption of Colorado State University's football team plays the University of Utah in Canvas Stadium. I don't have to write that every time. And again, in an ideal world, you want to have a fairly fast laptop, but be sure that you get there with all the cables and the accessories that you're going to need to make it work. Set up camp. You're there for the duration. Use rolling cases, carts, whatever you need to get everything to the venue. As a working photographer, you're going to go in a separate entrance to large venues, and you're not going to be subject to that clear bag restriction. Be ready for the duration. For example, I figure a football game, I'm going to be on campus for 7 hours. A basketball game, probably going to kill 4 hours. A track meet could kill all day, and I mean from 6:30 or 7 in the morning until 6:30 or 7 at night. So be sure you've got food and water with you, okay? You're going to miss meals, and you need to keep your energy up. And outdoor sports, you're going to be out there in the weather. So have foul weather gear for you, have an umbrella, but also be sure you've got rain gear for the camera so that it doesn't get waterlogged. Here's kind of a look at what the press room at Canvas Stadium looks like during a football game. You can see everybody's got stuff piled hither and yon, and his nose into the computer doing their edits at halftime so they can get a gallery up during that 20-minute halftime and then go out and shoot more of the game. A few things about sports imagery from an aesthetic standpoint. Tight compositions are a must, and it's okay to crop and crop severely if you have to. In an ideal world, you want an uncluttered, clean background. Again, that's one of the reasons professionals use very fast lenses is they have very shallow depth of field. Anytime you can get faces and expressions clearly visible, it's a much stronger picture. You want to show that tension as they compete for the ball. From the standpoint of shooting for this assignment, look around for youth rec league or intramural field games. Consider the lighting conditions and position yourself so that subject faces are either not in deep shadow or maybe so that they're backlit. Mid-mornings, mid-afternoons work really well. Late evening and night events can be a challenge. I'm not saying don't do it, but be ready for that to be a challenge because it gets kind of dark. You're going to need a fast shutter speed to freeze the action in this assignment. So what does that mean? It means your aperture is going to be wide open, whatever that is. And it means your ISO is probably going to be higher than you would like. When I shoot night football at canvas, I may be working at ISO 10,000 or 20,000 to get my shutter speed up. High school games can be even darker. Shoot raw and use auto white balance because the white balance can move around. Again, someplace like at Canvas or Broncos stadiums, they've got those ads that run the ring around the edge, and the color in those ads could shift the color in the field. Places like the intramural fields have lights that are just kind of a weird color, so it's good to be able to set it later. Set your drive to continuous high speed, whatever that is, and shoot lots of photos. I'm not saying spray and pray, but definitely shoot lots of photos to make sure that you get that one that you really like. We need that action to be stopped. So there's 4 factors that affect freezing the action, and it's FADS. F is focal length of the lens used. A is angle of the subject motion relative to the camera. D is the distance between the camera and the subject. S is the speed of the subject being photographed. Let's look at those in some detail. So the focal length of the lens matters for freezing the action. Longer telephoto lenses magnify the motion as well as bringing the subject in closer to you. So they're going to require a faster shutter speed, all else being equal, to freeze the action. The good news is that fast shutter speed also stops the camera motion. In this example, with a 350 millimeter lens, we're at a 1200th of a second, and that's pretty well stopped. We can see his fingers aren't moving. Angle of the subject movement relative to the camera makes a difference. Action that is moving perpendicular, side to side, has more apparent motion than action that's coming towards the camera or moving away from the camera. The distance between the camera and the subject matters. Things that are closer to the camera are going to have more apparent motion than things in the background. And you want to leave a little bit of psychological space ahead of the subject so that they can be appearing to move into the frame. You don't want to have the edge of the frame be where the action is and have that action moving out of the picture. Speed of the subject. Faster moving subjects require a faster shutter speed to stop the motion. Here we've got a 2500th of a second, and it's not only stopped the dog, it has stopped the flying water. Captions are very important in sports. News outlets require the names in those captions. So get a roster from each team. You can, again, with college professional, you can download it off the web. If it's a little league team, maybe you can photograph the coach's roster. Shoot the scoreboard after a significant play. It helps remind yourself later what happened right then. And shoot a picture of the roster that you can put into your database that can travel with those photos so that in 25 years, you can go back and figure out who they are. If your photo can be improved with a tight crop, crop away. There's a nice picture in the middle of this really loose frame. That's a much more compelling image. Heads up, if you're on the sidelines of a game, you're in danger of being hit. You must be alert and be aware of where the play is happening, which way the play is going. Classic sports images involve a player from each team and the ball, and you're looking for that emotion and the tension in the game. But keep on that after the play is over. You may see a reaction. And be ready for a hazardous environment if you photograph something like a Super Bowl or a World Series win, if you're lucky enough to do that. There's going to be a major scrum of everybody trying to get a picture of the coach and the quarterback with the trophy. And once you get into the locker room, it's possible that there may be champagne flying around. And you need to have your cameras wrapped in plastic. You'll notice these guys are all wearing ski goggles or scuba goggles. In some pictures of this, you can see that they've actually draped the locker room in plastic bags. Don't forget the ambiance at the game. Frequently, lots of action happening behind you up in the stands. If you're doing agency work, for example, for a picture agency that's syndicating your images, these images sell quite well. Fans in the stands can make for compelling images.